Hello, hello, and welcome. I've decided to do a Goosebumps series, so I was going to read the books and watch the TV series, and then do a little video about it, sort of discussing the differences, whether I thought it was any good or not. And then Netflix announced that they were doing a trilogy of Fear Street films, which are another group of books written by R.L.Stine. So I thought, why not kick it off with the Fear Street films? A little bit easier. So, first off, spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen the first film, Fear Street 1994, just pause it, save it to your watch later, go see the film, and then come back and see what I thought about it, see if we agree. But yeah, just so you know, there are spoilers. I've written a lot of notes about the film, probably too many. I'll try and sort of cut it down a little bit because basically I talk about the whole film, so you wouldn't need to go and watch it. So yeah, I'll cut some bits out, but at least they should help me keep a bit of a running track. So without further ado, welcome to Fear Street 1994. It is the first film of a trilogy of films, and at first I wasn't sure how they were going to do it. Whether it was going to be 3 separate films or whether they're going to be linked. And they are linked slightly-ish with the running background. But 1994 sets it up for the follow-ons. So it starts off, you see a shopping mall, very 90s, very 90s. I think they might have had the same set as Stranger Things 3 with Starcourt Mall. Kind of looks the same, but fair play. Reusing sets, it's got to be done. And we come in on a picture of a book, and it is actually a Fear Street book. It's one of R.L.Stine's books. Just for some background, the Fear Street series was, I think he did it after Goosebumps. So Goosebumps were written for sort of kids. Fear Street was for young adults, teenagers, older kids. And then you had the point horror books that are kind of the same as sort of Fear Street, but the point horror would by many authors. So I've never read a Fear Street book, but apparently at the start of this film they actually show a Fear Street book, which is kind of cool. It's kind of a good way of bringing it in. And you have Maya Hawke, who, if you've seen Stranger Things season 3, will know there's a mall worker there. Poor girl can't get away from the malls. Gets a phone call. Slightly different to Scream-ish, but she talks to her friend who works at sort of a knick-knack store. I know sort of we have Mankind in the UK. I think there's like Spencer's Gifts in America, maybe. So one of those ones where they sell masks, they sell lava lamps, they sell slinkies, Rubik's Cubes, a bit of everything. And the phone goes dead. They're just having a little chat, phone goes dead. Bit weird. So she pops out to see what's going on. And he gives her a little jump scare with a little blow-up doll. She then says, "Hey, can I get a ride home because I don't want to walk home on my own?" Fair enough. He agrees. Just says, let me finish up cleaning the store and everything, locking up. And then just as he turns away, he hears a whisper. Now, one thing I did notice when I was rewatching the film is a little fly lands on his neck. And I wasn't sure if it was one of those where it was intentional or if literally a fly just landed on his neck and they were just like, oh, whatever. You know, one of those, like, this shouldn't have happened. But yeah, he turns around to Maya Hawke's character, Heather, and says, "What'd you say?" And she's like, "Nothing." She goes back to the store to finish up and some books start falling off shelves. So she goes, picks them up, so what's going on? Next second, a guy in a mask, someone in a mask tries to stab her. Fortunately, she's holding a book there. Knife goes into the book and she runs off. I don't know if Netflix have a hell of a lot of money or if someone's going to get sued, but the start of this is pretty much a rip-off of Scream. With the phone call, with the fact that this killer person is in, black robes with a mask on. Not quite Ghostface mask, but there may be some questions to answer here. But anyway, so she gets away, runs to Ryan's store, and I assumed that she was going to jump over the desk and he'd be there cut up. No one's there. She grabs the phone, dials 911, and the killer walks into the store. So she scarpers, leaves the phone off the hook. Yeah, there's a bit of a chase. She hits him with a lava lamp, runs away, sees another dead body in the food court. Sorry. And then as she's running, now there's the part that I got a little bit confused about. She's running towards the door, which I assume is locked because the mall's shut. Like, I assume they have to get a janitor or someone to let them out if they're working late, but whatever. She's running towards the door. Killer catches up with her, stabs her. She then removes the mask, and it turns out to be Ryan, her friend. And she's like, what do you do? It's me. Like, what the hell's going on? Before, anything can really happen, then he gets shot in the head. Perfect shot, right between the eyes. And you sort of see that there's a cop that's turned up. So obviously they've answered the 911, like, something's not right here, because she said that she's at the mall. So they're like, Obviously send the cops to the mall, and inch perfect shot. Fair play to the cop. We then move into the credits, and it shows that there's two parts of this town. That you've got Shadyside, where there's loads of killings. It's just awful place. And then you have Sunnyvale, which as soon as I heard it, I cannot get Sunnydale from Buffy out of my head. So apologies if that's put that into your head now. But yeah, literally, it's just like, wait, did they say Sunnydale? Someone's really going to get sued here. Is it Sunnyvale? Oh, that's on the edge. Come on. But yeah, you've got Shadyside, bad place. Sunnyvale, really nice place. So he talks about all these murders that have happened, all these serial killings, and and then Sunnyvale is, happy days. This is a nice place to be. So then we cut to a girl. She's making a mixtape. She's writing out, "Fuck you, Sam. I hate you, Sam. Never want to see you again, Sam." And you're just like, well, we don't like this Sam person. And we also see her, who you assume to be her brother, Josh, on AOL. Very 90s. I'll get to that point at the end, but yeah, he's in an AOL chat room, listening to Iron Maiden, good lad, and he's talking to someone called the Queen of Air and Darkness about the more killings that happened the night before. But I'm hoping, this is going to get slightly ahead, but I'm hoping that we find out who the Queen of Air and Darkness is, because it seems odd that they're talking about, hey, you know what happened, don't you? You know exactly what's going on here. But obviously you don't know who she assuming it's a she, is. So it's a bit sort of like, But yeah, I think a lot of that was thrown in because it was 1994. There's already been sort of loads of music from the 90s/94. Obviously you had the mall, which is a very 90s thing from America. You've got an AOL chat room. It's just like, So I think there were bits that were put in just to be like, here's the 90s. See, 1994, we told you. Because, the rest of it is not quite so much. They both go to school. There's a tribute for Heather on her locker, which is just like 4 lockers down from Deemer's, who turns out to be the main character. There's a lot of tributes already on there, which is fair enough, but there's like, gone but not forgotten, and it's like, didn't she die like less than 12 hours ago? I mean, yeah, you're going to be upset that your friends died, but okay. Dina meets up with a couple of her friends, one of whom Josh has sort of checked out in the hall. Interesting, little love interest there. But she meets up with her 2 friends who are going along with this idea that it's the witch, that it's to control people, that's why people keep dying, because there's this witch's curse and stuff. You find out that also at this point that they're drug dealers. Fair play. Whatever. Kate, the girl cheerleader, is doing it so that she can move out and get away from Shadyside because it's so awful. Simon's just doing it because he's Kate's boyfriend / friend with benefit / there, why not? So Dina's a bit like, you still doing that, really? And then Kate's like, yeah, it's just because I want to get out of here. That's why I'm doing it. Dina then tries to give Kate a box to give to Sam that night, at which Kate says, no, I'm not doing that. No, you'll have to do it. So we go to flash forward to that night where there's a vigil before a football game between Shadyside and Sunnyvale. Obviously, Shadyside are very upset. Sunnyvale are basically just there because they have to be. And you have the Mayor Good, who is just saying, you know, we stand beside you. We're in all solidarity. You know, it's a horrible thing to happen. The sheriff, who's also surnamed Good, steps up and sort of says, like, hey, you know, just be careful out there. Like, stuff happens, but come on. Dina then sees who I assume to be Sam, who is a Sunnyvalian, however they want to be called, groping some cheerleader. Fair enough. She storms off, takes the mixtape out, and is just looking at the stuff like, oh. Sam then turns up, and it's the cheerleader, who is Sam, not the guy that was groping her. Which it was a good little twist. Like, you know, I just it was all on me that I assumed that it was the guy, and obviously he's moved on, whereas actually it was the girl. So fair play. That was a nice little twist to put in there. Then there's a fight between the Sunnyvale football players and the Shadyside football players, because basically the Sunnyvale football players just like, why are we even here? Why do we care? It's typical. It's just at least there's another one that's gone. But there's one thing that I don't think it gets mentioned too much, but apparently I can't remember if there's 7 deaths or 7 plus the killer from the mall killings. When Heather meets Ryan outside, she then goes back into the store, and looking on the basis of it, it's been like a minute. You know, there's literally like real time. She walks back in, books start falling off, meets the killer, runs away. But then they turn around, and as I said earlier, there's a dead person in the food court, and then apparently there's like another 6, 7 people dead, sort of thing. And it's just like, so either Ryan's been killing people before, and then went to meet up with Heather to play a little practical joke on her, and then started killing again, and then went after her for some crazy reason, or all these were done after he first heard this whisper. Like, you know, is this some kind of possession thing that he heard because it whispers his name? Yeah, it's like either he just killed like 6 odd people in a minute, which is fair play since I didn't realise there were going to be that many people left working late at the mall, or he's done it before, but it never really gets said. It was just one of those that I remember sort of noticing after I'd watched it again, that it was like, yeah, they said there was like 7 killings, and it's like, that was either really quick, or he's sort of going through a bit sort of you know, episodes of being possessed or going for killing, and then snaps out of it, is fine with Heather, and then snaps back into it and goes to kill her. It seems a little bit odd, but that was just something that I completely forgot to note down, and it just came to my head then. It was like, yeah, there was so many killings. Like, what? But yeah, so basically Sunnyvale are sort of like, whatever. They start a fight. They're then chasing the Shadyside school bus down in their car, and 2 of the football players are wearing the skull masks that we're seeing from the... Someone's calling him the skeleton face killer, and someone calling him the skull mask killer. I don't think they could quite make up their mind. But yeah, they're wearing this like skull mask and throwing bottles at the bus. So Dina has the idea of, hey, screw you guys, we're going to throw this tub of Gatorade or whatever it is at the car. So that happens. The car veers off the road, crashes. So they're like, hey, we need to stop this bus because, whoa, that wasn't really supposed to happen. This is all Dina's nose has started bleeding, and then we cut to Sam sort of crawling out of the car. Like, obviously she's hit her head on the dash and stuff. She's bleeding. She puts her hand on the ground and has this vision, just this like flashback vision. It's like, okay, what happened there? Dina and obviously the guys from the school bus have sort of come to try and help, and the Sunnyvalers are like, go away, like, you caused us to crash, what the hell? The police are called, everyone sticks to the same story as, that was an accident, they crashed, oops. And then Pete, who is Sam's boyfriend, sort of gives Dina a hug to show off to the sheriff, like, hey, we're friends, it's fine, it's whatever, and whispers her in her ear, like, screw you, you're dead meat, sort of thing. Later that evening at Dina's house, there's a knock at the door. She goes out there, there's no one there, and then she looks across the road and there's someone wearing the skull mask's gear, and she's like, nice one, Pete. Hey, you're funny, aren't you? She then goes back inside, goes to the kitchen, looks out the back window, and he's there again, and he sort of brandishes the knife, and it's like, and so she comes out and she's like, screw you, you're not going to scare me, you're an idiot. She phones up Kate, who is babysitting with Simon, and says, hey, this guy's messing with me, so, great. There is then a smashed window. Kate and Simon go to check it out, and Skull Mask is in the front room. He sees them. They sort of like run back around the corner, like, oh, turn back, and he's gone. So it's a bit like, okay. At least he didn't try and kill us. Winner. So they pop up, they go to the hospital. Put my notes somewhere where I can actually see them. They all go to the hospital to see Sam because Dina's like, nah, not having this. Your boyfriend's being a dick. Let's sort this out. So they go to the hospital. Her and Sam are arguing. Pete turns up and she's just like, oh, you didn't bring your mask this time, eh? And he's just like, what are you talking about? Like, can't you just leave? Like, what's going on? He then gets stabbed by Skullface, and it's just like, oh, maybe it's not him then. So they run away. They run past Kate, Simon, and Josh, who Kate sort of told to come along. This is one of the best scenes because they sort of run past, then Kate like has a split second. She's like, it's just like, I mean, he's all the way over there. Like, you don't need to worry about it. But that happens. They then struggle in the reception foyer part, and the skull mask, skeleton face, the killer's mask is pushed back as it was in the beginning scene, and you see Ryan with a bullet hole right there. So Dina sees this and is like, something's not right. You what? They go to the police, tell them that, there's been killings at the hospital and it was Ryan Torres, the skull mask killer from the night before. And the sheriff's just sat there like, sure about that? Like, here's a picture, and slides a picture, with Ryan Torres lying on the floor with a bullet hole in his head. Like, don't think he's going to be getting back up after that. Which, I don't know if Dina didn't notice or something, or, sort of the shock. If it was me, I'd have turned around and been like, yeah, I know this sounds crazy, but he also had that bullet hole. Like, it wasn't just him like, hey, I've just cleaned myself, I've had a shower, I'm fine now. He had the bullet hole, like, but she doesn't actually mention that. So it's like, okay, that might have been something to add in. Just be like, I know this sounds absolutely crazy, and even more now, but that's exactly how he looked. But whatever. Simon's gone to relieve himself, make use of the facilities of the street, and he finds a girl crying and singing this little song, weird little song. So he pops over, asks how she is. She ends up attacking him with a razor blade, switchblade. Dina steals one of the other cops' guns and shoots this girl who's, she's all over Simon, like, this guy's going to die. So she shoots her like 3 times in the back, I think. She goes down, Simon gets up, and they just bolt it. But Sam notices that this person thing gets back up, and her eye, which apparently she got shot in somehow, just molds back into place. And it's like, that's not right. So they all go back to Dina's house. They're all in the basement. Like, what is going on? Like, who was that? Why were you getting attacked? And then Josh figures out that it's Ruby Lane, who killed people in, I think it was 1963 or something. I can't remember what day they put on that one. But yeah, she killed her boyfriend, her friends, and then killed herself while singing this little ditty song. Gets a newspaper clipping, shows Simon. He was like, yeah, that's her. Like, what the hell? Josh then goes to he's got one of those massive boards with, string and everything attached to, this happened here, this happened here, this happened here. And he just goes through all these killers, like, hey, this person killed this camp, and this person was a pastor that killed, and this was a milkman that killed, and this was a little boy that killed. And it all leads back to this witch called Sarah Fear. Funny that. The fact that it's called Fear Street. Crazy. So they all sort of start to believe this curse now, that's not coincidence. Like, no, something ain't right here. This girl got shot, just got back up, and it's definitely Ruby Lane. Like, okay, and you're saying that you saw Ryan Torres after he got shot last night? That's a bit weird. So then they're sort of sat there like, well, why is she after us? Like, what did we do? We're just kids. Like, leave us alone. And then Sam admits that she saw her. So when she was sort of touched her bleeding nose, touched the floor, and had that vision, that was of Sarah Fear being hung and sort of sees her and stuff. So they go back to the crash site and they discover that exactly, absolute coincidence, that the spot where Sam touched the floor is exactly where Sarah Fear's bones are buried. Not very deep either. The fact that she got hung sort of like 300 years ago. Could have done a better job with burying them, but whatever. And then all of a sudden, we have another killer coming. And this person blows straight past everyone. Like, Josh is there in front of everyone. And, nope, don't care about you. Get out of the way. Straight towards Sam. So Sam gets pulled away. They run off. And it looks like it's the guy from the Camp Nightwing killings. So it's like, okay, right. So they sort of speed off and they're like, what is going on? Because, like, this guy just blew past us. He did not care about us whatsoever. They work out that it's Sam that they're after. And when Ghostface, whatever his name was, it's not Ghostface, I'm just going to call it Ghostface because it's a rip off a Scream. When Skull Mask is in the front room when Katie Simon babysitting, it's because he's sniffing the blood on one of the shirts. So he's after Sam. He doesn't care about anyone else. So they're like, right, okay, this is interesting. So they go to the school, apparently, and realise they need to wash off all the blood and get changed and everything. I assume because it's sort of aimed at a teen audience that's the reason for this sex scene to be put in. It is like completely pointless. But Sam and Dina get back together and have sex. Kate turns around to Josh and says, I don't want to go into the changing room on my own just because, like, there's ghost killers after us. Like, no. So he goes in with her and then she asks him to go into the store with her just to check that she's got all the blood off her. It's fair enough. Sensible. Then they kiss and presumably go further. And then Simon's in the boys' changing room on his own and decides to masturbate because I guess why not? But yeah, I assume it's because it's a teen audience that they're aiming for. It was like the most pointless thing to put in ever. Whether it was sort of like, hey, look, teens have sex. Like, it was just one of those scenes where it was just like, the Josh and Kate kiss, I kind of get because you can understand that Josh is interested in Kate. Maybe Kate sort of, she's seen him as a bit more of an interesting person. Maybe she's interested in him. Fair enough, they might kiss, and obviously Sam and Dean are getting back together. But yeah, it's just sort of like, Especially the masturbation one is just like, good for you, mate. Right. Like, it's a bit odd sort of thing to put in, but so they set a trap for these killers. They use Sam as bait, trail her blood around so that they'll follow these trails of blood, which they do. Is quite awesome. Lock them in the bathroom, blow them up. Great, excellent, cool. Killers are gone. Don't worry about it. They go back into the bathroom, and then again, very Stranger Things 3. All the killers sort of blown apart, little mushy bits start coming back together and recreating it, and they're like, right. So they decide that Sam's gonna have to get sacrificed. Like Kate and Simon, and I think Josh maybe stays quiet, but is kind of like complicit in his silence. Whereas Dean is obviously like, "Hey, I really can't kill her. Like, we just got back together. Please don't." But yeah, they decide that, no offense, if it's Sam they want, then why are we running and nearly getting stabbed and all this business? If we could end it. And then Sam's like, you know what? Fine, I'll do it. So she goes out in the hall, and I think it's the Camp Nightwing killer that's like coming at her with an axe. Just at the last second, Sam gets pulled out of the way by, I think it's Dina and Kate or whoever it is. And they realise that there was a survivor who saw the witch from Camp Nightwing. So Camp Nightwing killers, axe in the door, trying to get in. So then we've got a couple holding the door, a couple looking at this newspaper clipping to try and work out, how did this work? They phone this Sarah Berman. She doesn't answer, and they're like, please, we got killers after us. Like, how did you do this? How are you still alive? And then Sam obviously finishes reading this newspaper clipping and realizes that she died. When they found her, her heart had stopped. And then obviously they performed CPR, got defibrillators on her, whatever, brought her back. But presumably the reason she's still alive is because technically she died. So the killers or the witch or whoever were like, oh, she's dead. Don't care then. Fine. And then obviously brought her back, but obviously, the witch wouldn't have known that. So they're like, right, now we've got a plan. So they all run off to the supermarket where Simon works, and Kate and Simon have got some drugs. So I presume they stopped at home on the way or something. And they're basically explaining to her that, if you take these, it's going to stop your heart. You take these, it's going to make you come back, whatever. Basically, they're going to use the drugs to OD and bring you back as well. Pretty clever. So Kate, Simon and Josh all sort of paint X's on their chests with Sam's blood to try and sort of lure the killers away or to confuse them and everything. And then Dina stays with Sam to give her the drugs, because obviously after she's done, I think it's the second one, she's like completely spaced out or whatever. Skull Mask then just appears and starts going for Sam, it kind of appears that she's hallucinating, but she says to Dina, like, hey, watch out. And then just as Skull Mask gets there, Kate turns up with a flame, one of them clicky lighter things, and hairspray or deodorant for a makeshift flamethrower. Obviously gets rid of him, tells them to run, at which point the bowl of pills gets hit. So that plan is, scuppered. So Kate's off fighting with Skull Mask. Dina then sees the lobster tank and is like, I could drown you. Obvious things that go through people's heads, like, yeah, lobster tank, I could drown you. Yep, that sounds easy enough. The Camp Nightwing killer is then chasing Josh, and I think Ruby Lane, the switchblade, razorblade lady, is just sort of like strolling around on her own. I don't think she's actually fussed about anyone. Then I'm just trying to remember what happened then. So Kate and Skull Mask are fighting. Skull Mask stabs her. She carries on fighting back, fair play to her. Tough little cookie. She then gets her head or she gets put through a sort of meat slicer head first, which was pretty fucking gruesome. To be honest, like, I was trying to limit the swearing in these videos, but damn, right? Like, as gruesome as anything. Like, you know, she ends up being mince. And it's like, okay. Josh and Simon sort of run to the end of an aisle and see her. Obviously, they're both upset because technically they were both her boyfriends. And then just as they sort of look at each other, Simon gets an axe to the head from Nightwing Killer. So I was quite surprised that they killed both of those characters off. Obviously, they were supporting characters, but they were supporting main characters. So that was sort of like I'm interested to see how 2 and 3 go now, because is that it for this crew then? This is a bit weird. Like, okay. And then I think it's Skull Mask is then about to kill Josh, and Ruby Lane is coming up on Dina and Sam, just as Sam drowns. She takes her last breath. So Sam dies, and the ghosts just disappear. It's gone. So Dina then shouts to Josh to get hold of the EpiPens, the adrenaline. I don't know how many they go through, but, you know, stabbing her in the heart with the adrenaline. Nothing's happened, nothing happening. Then she comes back because, you know, of course, we want a happy ending. So we then go to the police station, and everyone, you know, Dina, Sam, and Josh have all got cuts all over them, and everyone's sort of like, you know, the sheriff's sort of like, okay, what happened? And they're like, well, we went to get a prescription in a closed store. Nothing's ever said about that. And then the lights went out, so we just hid. And he's like, okay. And how did you get these cuts? And they're like, fell on glass. And they stick to this story of everyone fell on glass. And the sheriff's like, you had 12 stitches in your shoulder. Like, really? So then he turns around, and it's quite interesting way of doing it, because he turns around and says, well, look, Kate and Simon are going to get blamed for being drug dealers. This was a drug deal gone bad. Obviously, that's why them two are dead. You know, they owed money or something, and that's it. Game over. So they're sort of like, well, no, they are our friends, but also you do what story you want. Like, we're not going to give you another story. So that's how it goes. So then where are we? Then we're in Dina's house, and her and Sam are just cuddling on the bed listening to the mixtape, and Josh is presumably downstairs. So the doorbell keeps ringing, and Dina's like, God's sake, shouts Josh, like, there's someone at the door. Are you ever going to answer the door? Turns around, mini jump scare with the fact that Josh is there, and he's like, what? Because he ordered pizza, and it was the pizza guy at the door. So she's like, oh, well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Cool. Goes to go back to the room, and the phone rings. So she answers the phone. She's like, what? And it's Sarah Berman, the Camp Nightwing survivor. And she's like, oh, you're still alive for now then, are you? And it's just like, yeah, thanks for your help. Like, you know, we did it. We sorted it out. And she's like, yeah, no, it's not over. It's never over. And it's like, okay. And then Dina turns around. I did miss a little bit, but yeah, Dina turns around and Sam's standing there. And then we look down, and she stabbed Dina with a broken drumstick. But I did just realise one bit I did miss is, I think it was when Dina went to answer the door that Sam hears a whisper, and the callback to earlier in the mall is there's a couple of flies around. So I assume it was intentional in the mall. That, you know, it's the witches whispering to people when she possesses them, and there's flies about because, you know, hey, witches curse. Like, you know, why wouldn't there be flies? So her and Dina and Sam are then fighting upstairs, like, you know, Dina's been stabbed and everything. We cut to Josh back down in the basement, back on AOL 90s. Talking to the Queen of Air and Darkness, and she's like, you know, where have you been? Like, what's going on? And he's just like, yeah, a lot's happened. And then she says, well, at least we know all that mess at the supermarket wasn't Sarah Fear. Like, that was those tweakers, Katie and Simon. To which he then turns around and he's like, nah, not having that. They were friends. They were awesome. really like those guys. This is what happened. And then as he says that, you sort of get a shift on the screen reflection and you can see a hand on his shoulder. And you're like, oh, Sam's come for you, boy, before you can announce the truth to this Queen of Air of Darkness, whoever it is. But what I noticed today is actually you can see Dina's shirt in the reflection as well. So you can actually tell it's Dina rather than Sam. But the first time I watched it, it was like, oh, Sam's here. And then it's Dina sort of holding her stab wound like, you got a problem. They go upstairs and Sam's all tied up with a phone cord, which, I mean, I know 90s like telephone, like you used to have them in the kitchen and they used to have a really long cord, but fair play. And she's doing this whole like exorcist possession type thing. So Dina's like, hey, I'm gonna sort you out, promise. Right, you know, I'm gonna get you back. And that was the end of it. And then it sort of sets up ready for Fear Street Part 2, which was 1976, I think. I don't know. Check the next vid for that. So that was 1994. I don't know if it was a good film or not. I can't make up my mind. Like, it's a good film if you're... I don't even know how to explain it, really. If you just want to sit down and watch a film, like, I really enjoyed it when I first watched it. But when I watched it again, like, I was paying a bit more attention to make notes and you know, see things that shouldn't have happened or things that might have been missed. But it was just like, I didn't care. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a film that I could sit and watch a second time and be like, that was really cool. So I think it was a film that was good for a watch. You know, if you want a sort of teen slasher, old school reference, chill out movie, then fine. But there's not a lot of horror in it. There's not many jump scares in it, really. And the ones that are there are very predictable. So yeah, so it's horror style, not great. The acting, not wonderful. I don't know. Good. I think it's the only thing I can say about it is it's good. Like, it's worth a watch, especially if you were a Fear Street and Goosebumps fan. Like, if you liked R.L. sort of writing and stuff. Like, as I said, there was a couple of twists that I thought was cool. Just as they leave the police station after the three of them are given the statements at the end, and Josh helps a guy escape some handcuffs, or you presume he passes him a paperclip so he can sort of undo his handcuffs. And he says, thanks, I owe you, and passes him a card. So I assume that is going to come back at some point in the future. Because otherwise that is a really odd thing to put in. But yeah, so I like the way they're doing it as the trilogy. So this one sort of set everything up. And then 1976, looking at sort of the previews and stuff, they go and see this Sarah Berman. Dina and Josh go and see this Sarah Berman, and it's just like, hey, you're still alive, like, you're not possessed. Can we get some help? And it's also then going to go into the story of Camp Nightwing, which is where obviously Sarah Berman survived. But yeah, so I quite like that idea. That it's sort of like 1994 is still the timeline, but to have another film, it's, hey, this happened sort of 20 years ago. So that could be good. But yeah, I don't know. It's not a horror film, so if you love horror, probably not going to be interested. I don't really like how they did the 90s either, because the music's 90s. Obviously AOL and the mall is 90s. That was kind of it. Like, it didn't really feel like 90s other than that. You know, it was a bit sort of like, this could be now, this could be modern time. They're just listening to some old music. You know, I mean, I don't know how they would have done it, but yeah, it was just a bit sort of like, is this 90s? Like, okay, fine, whatever. But yeah, like, it was an enjoyable film. It's good to watch. Like I said, you know, if you enjoy sort of Goosebumps and stuff, like, it is a bit of nostalgia. as I said, I haven't read any of the Fear Street, so I don't know if it's actually a Fear Street book that it's based around or anything, or if it's literally just using that name and whatever. But yeah, that was my review of it. Like, it was a decent watch. Like, let me know in the comments below what you thought. Like, did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you spot anything that I didn't? Did you see any more 90s stuff? Because, as I said, don't really know how much 90s there was, other than actually mentioning AOL by name as well. I like that. It's like, you know, you shouldn't be on AOL. It's like, wow, okay. 90s, okay, we get it, cool. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I will do another vid of 1976 and then part 3 when that's out. And yeah, like and subscribe, do all that business. You know how it goes. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.